Hello, my name is Mark D. St Aubin, and I am a retired professor from the College of Social Work at the University of Utah, where I taught clinical practice with grief and loss for a number of years, and as well as medical social work courses. Have been working in the field of grief and loss for about 40 years. So I would like to address the subject of the loss of self from long-haul COVID. About 4 years ago, I contracted COVID, and from that experience, had a series of collapses from that experience, medical symptoms and response, where I was made bedbound for a period of 3 years, during which time I learned how to experience myself in a different way. And I'll say that by saying that I lost much of who I thought I was, and I realized that who I thought I was no longer in existence. And we could, perhaps from a Buddhist perspective, experience loss of self every day, if you wanted to look at it from that perspective. But for some reason, it was very disruptive, and actually a crisis of not only my own functioning day to day, living from a bed, but also a crisis of religious faith, feeling abandoned by God, by my body, by myself, who I had created myself to be for the 63 years prior to my illness. So living from a place of having no energy and no or very, very little contact with anyone in the world, because I did not have the strength to function, to engage with the world. I watched the world take place from my bedroom window, and watched actually, I enjoyed birds, I enjoyed the sunshine, but that's about it for a period of 3 years. I had to decide whether or not I had the energy to even go outside to sit and enjoy hearing the birds and seeing the nature that I so love. So what type of grief did I experience? It was interesting. And I think the lesson that I learned was that I learned how to suffer. And if you look at the work of Viktor Frankl and of a crisis of meaning, I needed to create a sense of new meaning and purpose in my life, thinking that I would, for my future, be living it from my bed with a very minimal battery charge. I realized that myself can be reconstructed, and I realized that I had continued purpose and could engage with others, even just with a sense of presence. My dear friends came by, and we would just hold hands, and I would cry, or I would share a thought, and allow myself to be present without an active engagement. How do you reconstruct self in such an environment? Well, my faith, my religious faith in God, was a very strong kind of foundation for my reconstruction. I realized that my life had worth and purpose even in the state that I was in. I began to learn to accept what was. And in my acceptance, I started to heal. I started to learn that my body was my friend. This illness was actually my friend, and it was my teacher. And so in my gradual acceptance over the period of 3 years, I came to allow my body to be where it was, to not fight or resist. And so in that state, my body was able to heal. And 11 months ago, I started to notice that my sleep was rejuvenative, and I started to actually see small glimpses of a sense of strength and capacity again. My body and my spirit, my my sense of self has healed and actually been transformed. I look at life differently, obviously, now after a 3-year stint with long haul COVID.